Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, and in today's review I'm going to be taking a look at the Transformers Earthrise Commander Class Skylynx. The Commander Class, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with this particular size class, was introduced to us back in the Transformers Siege line, and the first character to come out of that line was the Siege Jetfire, which I'm not sure about yourself, but for me personally was one of the best figures to come out from the actual Generations line in years. It was almost masterpiece quality in terms of some of its features and its scale, but the price was considerably lower than a masterpiece, however a little bit higher than your standard leader class, and just overall for me it was a phenomenal figure. So when it was announced at Toy Fair this year that the Commander class would be continuing on with a new introduction of Commander class Skylynx, I was eagerly anticipating this figure's release, as Jetfire left an incredibly good taste in my mouth about what this Commander class line could offer. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at Skylynx himself. So here I have him in his shuttle mode with the Lynx acting as the transporter. I do believe that this is the transportation mode for where this entire transportation unit would drive the shuttles in before they depart for wherever they are flying off from. We can see here that on the actual shuttle itself we've got some really nice touches such as the NASA text as well as Magnificent, which I think is really nice. We've also got some nice gold paint applications here as well as on the tail fin. We've also got some nice gold paint apps here for the front of the cockpit, and overall there is also some quite nice sculpted in details going throughout this figure. I do apologise if some of the details do get flushed out. I am reviewing a white figure and I do in fact have a white background, however I will do my best. Very similarly to Jetfire, Skylynx does have some areas where the white is a slightly more grey plastic. I actually quite like this as it helps to break up the colour and just bring out some of the sharper details of the sculpt, which is quite nice. And as we rotate around to the back of the shuttle, we do in fact have some different thrusters, which too have also got some nice detailings on them. And then as we turn to the top, we've got some nice Autobot insignias with a gold backing and a red deco for the actual symbol itself. And even on these wings we've also got some nice sculpted in detailings, which is all really cool to see. Turning to the actual Lynx mode now, I think that they've done a really nice job here with this figure. We can see the different paint variations of the red, blue and white, and I like some of the details here of actual treads at the base. However, he doesn't roll on these sections. If we flip to the underside, you are in fact able to see that he does roll on these caster wheels underneath here at 4 different points. So when you have this figure flat on the ground, it does give you the illusion that perhaps these treads are functioning. However, of course they are not. You can hear just from rolling this how heavy this figure is as well. Considering that this figure is a higher price point than a leader, he definitely does have a fair amount of plastic and definitely feels incredibly substantial to handle, which I think is really nice. He also comes with some blast effects, much like you would expect from the Siege and Earthrise figures. So just bringing in some of these, we can in fact port those into the back of the thrusters if you so choose. So we've got some different ones here that we can all insert and have it look as if though the transporter is under attack. So Skylynx has to use his shuttle mode in order to make the transporter go faster, and he zooms off into the base of the Autobots. So I think that this is a really cool feature. In terms of a quick size comparison, just to give you a sense of how big Skylynx is within this shuttle and transporter mode, I'll bring out Earthrise Wheeljack, which is of course a deluxe class. You can see here that Skylynx is considerably larger than that of the deluxe class Wheeljack, as he really should be. This figure is absolutely ginormous in hand and is a lot bigger than I actually expected, which I found quite surprising. You can see here that they are definitely deluxe, and I guess Commander class scale, considering there really isn't that many figures to compare this Commander class figure with. You can see here that he is definitely a lot bigger than your standard Earthrise deluxe class. So to actually separate the entire shuttle from this transporter, it's actually pegged in via 2 points. So there is a clip that is under here and then a locking mechanism that is under here. So what you have to do first is you have to push your finger on this button and this will release this whole top. Once this is done, we can then take this and slide this whole section backwards, and that will unhook this from this section. So just showcasing that connection point, if I go underneath the shuttle, you can see that there is a slight groove and a notch there that will actually peg into this back section here. So it slides into there and then you clip it into place, and this will latch into place via a very heavy duty spring. So that really isn't going nowhere when handling this figure. As we already have the shuttle transformed for this particular modular battle station mode, it's really just this whole area that we have to worry about. So to begin with, quite frankly, the transformation on this is actually quite easy. You're going to want to flip over to this side, and then now what we can do is begin to unlock these joints here. Just unlock those from the sides and then ratchet these outwards on both sides just like so. With that done, we can take these sections and just pull those out to the sides and pull those out to the sides. Take this here, dislodge this, ratchet this up, and then fold out these treads on these ratchet joints, and then just swivel those around, and then repeat the same process here for this side. So ratchet this up, ratchet this section up, and then rotate this around. And really and truly, it's up to your own interpretation how you have these sections angled. We can then take these pieces here and unpeg those and fold those out. Come to this section at the front, just pull that out, and then flip this section down and out, and then come to this whole section, lift this up and fold this piece up. With that now done, we can bring in the actual shuttle mode, which if I remove the accessories, you can see that there are ports in the thrusters where we did attach the blast effects. These are going to peg into this section on the modular battle station mode. So you just simply want to port this into place. And then with the shuttle attached to this modular battle station, we can in fact bring in these accessories, which I'll take a closer look at when I actually get him into the Lynx mode. You can see some posts on the underneath here, which you just want to peg into the tops of where these treads were. And then we can plug this one vertically, just like that. And here we have Skylynx in his modular battle station mode. I've brought the camera out as far as I possibly can, as believe it or not, this figure does really start to stack up and become considerably large. He's quite tall, and then it's quite wide once you transform this all out. But this is quite a nice mode. You can see that it definitely does evoke that of a battle station, and we do have the different clip systems, so you can peg these on to figures such as Ironworks or even Hoist, so that compatibility of the connection of all these different panels is still carried over with this particular Skylynx figure. And then we also can bring this in for a closer look and then just collapse this section down for now. You can in fact open up the shuttle to reveal some really nice gold details, which I think is a really nice touch on Hasbro's part, and it just looks super cool. And then we can just extend that here and have the ramp leading up to this area. I think that that looks really, really nice. I just think that the Commander class line personally is so good. It's a really nice balance between a high quality premium product, but with not such of a substantial price point that we would perhaps be familiar with, such as the Masterpiece line. Now, in terms of a comparison between this particular mode and an Earthrise figure, here I have the Earthrise Optimus Prime, which is more or less a Voyager class. Just so you can see how these all look together. You can see that whilst it may not look too large here, believe me, it is definitely quite wide, and the shuttle is quite big. So if I just collapse this down and showcase you how big the actual shuttle is compared next to the Earthrise Optimus Prime, you can in fact see here that it is definitely quite a large looking piece and still retains that Commander class vibe. So now to transform this section back to how we had it, we're going to want to collapse this in and port this into place. We can come to this section here, fold this up and tab that in. We can remove these blasters, which once again I'll take a closer look at in just a second. We could take these pieces and fold them in. However, as I'm going now straight to the Lynx mode, I am in fact going to leave those out. We can then come to this and clip this into place, and then repeat the same process here. Just rotate these pieces around on the mushroom pegs, and then rotate these pieces out, and then pull the feet down on both sides. So really and truly a very simplistic transformation. We can use these ratchet joints here to get him in more of a natural looking stance. So just ratchet all this back and repeat the same process here for this side. Click all these joints out. A really nice touch that Hasbro didn't have to include on this particular piece was that you can in fact actually make this figure look more broad when in the Lynx mode. So you simply just take the shoulder and hinge it out and it will click into place, and I think that's such a nice attention to detail, and once again is some of those masterpiece qualities that we saw with Jetfire. You know, Jetfire had the hands that could open and close, and when they were open they hid the port that he holds the weapons with. This too is a very nice touch and is along those lines. We're then going to want to pull this section down and simply just fold this whole piece out, and here we reveal the head of the Lynx, and just collapsing that up. Here we effectively have the Lynx fully transformed. So I'll just set him off to the side as we're now going to transform the shuttle into the bird configuration. So just taking a closer look at this shuttle. Once again, just taking in all of that surface detailing, which I think looks magnificent. Another attention to detail is that you can in fact fold out this landing gear and he does in fact have real working wheels, which is something that usually we don't tend to see on some of the Generations figures. I believe we got it with Jetfire, and here we have it with Skylynx. So just collapse these sections in. What you do here is just elongate this, pull this out, and then this whole tower will actually elongate, and you're going to want to pull it down so that you can then collapse this section back up and then just hinge it out on all of these different joints. This section does tend to pop open due to it not being held in there too securely. It's not going to flop around, but if you do bring the tail up, it is more than likely going to dislodge it. A really nice element, and probably my favorite area of the transformation, is actually pulling out this nose cone to reveal the neck of the actual bird mode. So here you simply just take this and pull this whole section out, and it shoots out, and it's on all of these different ratchet joints. And here we've got the mouth, which you can just open ever so slightly. Come to these sections now and just lift these up, fold the wings outwards, and then fold those down, and repeat the same process here. So just untab and fold this out and fold this down. And then as we turn to the underside for the legs, you just want to untab those, and they can ratchet out to the sides. And you can fold out these toes as well. And then just repeat the same process here for this side. So just bring this out, and this is really where you get to see how large this figure truly is. And that is the full transformation for both the bird mode and the Lynx mode for this Transformers Commander class Skylynx. For a quick side-by-side comparison between the bird mode and the Lynx mode, you can see here that whilst the Lynx definitely consists of the main bulk of the figure, you can see that Skylynx truly is the piece that makes it absolutely huge. As the legs extend, we've got the massive wingspan and the huge looking head. If I just bring out that Earthrise Optimus Prime just so you can see a comparison between this and a standard figure within this particular mode, you can see that the Lynx too is really large, but once compared to the bird, Optimus just is completely dwarfed. So there is definitely no doubt here whatsoever that this figure is in fact Commander class in terms of its size and its presence. Starting off with the Lynx mode first, he definitely does look incredibly intimidating, particularly when you do extend out these front shoulder sections. As stated previously, I just think touches like that really elevate a figure from being standard to rather premium. And here, just giving you a quick side perspective, you can see the paintwork here on these red sections. I really do like the blue plastic used for this particular figure as well. That looks really nice. And we've got some nice red paint apps here at the top. And how these sections come out from the back is really cool as well. So just a super nice figure. I'm thoroughly impressed with this latest release by Hasbro. And taking a look at that Lynx head sculpt, you are able to see that it has been painted in a really nice gold paint application with an Autobot emblem on at the top and these blue eyes. And once we open the mouth, we can reveal some details of the teeth. And then we've also got an articulated tongue in there, which of course can in fact hold the blast effects which are included within this figure, much like you'll see in the bird mode. You can peg those onto the tongue. They are quite weighty, so I would recommend closing the jaw, as if you don't, this section here is more than likely going to droop. So once you close the jaw, you can have this Lynx looking as if though he's deploying fire from his mouth. In terms of articulation, you saw here the head is on a hinge joint as well as a ball joint, so it can tilt side to side, look up and down to a great degree, which is fantastic. This whole neck assembly here can also move side to side, so that just helps with some of the posability options. The arms here are on ratchet joints forwards, so they ratchet forwards and backwards, as well as out to the sides. We also get a full 360-degree rotation here. There are double ratcheted joints for these front legs, so you can hinge these in whatever way you so choose. And then finally, there is a ratchet joint at the front, and he does have a great degree of motion in terms of the ankle, and all of the other legs are exactly the same in terms of articulation as the front, so I won't delve into those. You saw here that we can in fact compress and pull this section out, so once again, that's it compressed, and then this is it elongated, which I think is a lot better. So personally, I actually do really like this Lynx mode. We've also got some nice detailings here, and you can take some of the effects that he comes with and actually port those into the front if you wish. So you can have him looking as if though he's deploying some fire from this region, which I'm not entirely sure as to why you would want him to, but definitely that's quite a nice function nonetheless. In order to transform him and prepare him for the actual Skylynx merger, you just want to open this section here, collapse the head, fold this whole assembly down, and then lift this section back up. And here we have the Lynx mode prepared for attaching the bird section. Now, taking a look at this whole bird assembly, personally for me, I do find this particular mode incredibly frustrating. Due to the longness of this actual figure, it does make standing him in this mode really difficult, and the wings are incredibly floppy, so they do tend to droop down, which is unfortunate. So I won't delve into too much for this particular mode, but you can see here that we do have the incredibly elongated neck. neck. Articulation for this entire thing will be covered when we actually merge him with the Lynx mode, but just giving you a look of how he looks here. The wings fully elongated, and I'll give you a quick rundown of the leg articulation for this bird mode. So we do have ratchet joints forwards and backwards, and ratchet joints at the hips, full 360-degree rotation where I presume his thigh would be. We also get ratchet joints here for the knees, a swivel joint at the mushroom peg, although it is quite stiff and is stiffer than this top one. And then finally the foot can ratchet forwards and backwards, as well as hinge side to side in order to give you some ankle rocker joint. So whilst this mode isn't awful, for me personally, I just find it more annoying than anything, as it is quite tricky to stand in within this particular mode due to the balancing act of the rather large head. And believe it or not, this whole section here is actually quite weighty, so it does tilt the figure down, and then if you have the wings it will tilt the figure back. So personally, I just like to use this for either the shuttle or when we actually combine them. So talking of combination, you just want to fold up the feet and then ratchet these whole joints up and fold those into those cavities, and repeat the same process here. So just collapse these sections and then fold those and clip those into these sections, straightening this up and porting this into place, snapping it in like so. You can see here once again, this is the notch section for that clip that I spoke about, and we have to then hook this section inwards. So bringing the Lynx mode out, what you have to do first is come to this section and take this and align this up, and then hook this in. And then once this is clicked in, you just want to compress this, and this will solidify this whole connection, meaning that this top section will not be removed from this without it pushing this button. So just straightening the arms out, lifting the head up and opening the jaw, and then folding these wings out and getting them to balance as best I possibly can. This here is by far the best mode that this entire figure has to offer. Here we have the Transformers Earthrise Skylynx. So after a few rather wobbly modes, most specifically and most noticeably the bird mode, I honestly think that this here more than makes up for it. The shuttle mode and the transporter mode I think is quite nice. The modular battle station mode too is quite nice. I do actually like the Lynx on its own. The bird for me I don't necessarily like, but combining the both, this is just truly tremendous. And this is why this figure is Commander class. It is absolutely huge, and the level of detail that Hasbro have put into this figure truly is remarkable. This beats the previous version that we got, which I believe was perhaps released in Titan's Return. Whenever it was released, it was an awful figure, and I even remember it actually skipping out on the actual Lynx mode. So this truly is the best Skylynx figure that we have got in a very long time. And once again, personally for me, I still think it follows the same trend as Jetfire in setting an almost masterpiece level vibe for the main Generations toy line. An area of interest that I had when this figure was first unveiled was how Hasbro would in fact get the neck to actually articulate and extend from without, and I've got to say they've done a really nice job. So taking a look at the actual face sculpt, we saw earlier on in shuttle mode that it has got some nice details, but opening the figure's jaw, we do reveal a set of all of these nice individually sculpted teeth, as well as also a tongue, much like the Lynx mode, which can in fact be articulated. We can also take the battle effects that this figure comes with and actually port those onto this as well in order to give you the illusion that Skylynx is in fact deploying fire. However, I wouldn't put too many on, as it will weigh this head sculpt down, as this section here is merely on a ball joint. Talking of the articulation, this piece here is on a ball joint, so it looks up and down. It can also look left to right and could in fact do the full 360 degrees. We can also get it to tilt left to right on its own. So a fantastic piece of articulation just from this joint alone. But there is in fact all of these different hinges which are in fact ratchet joints. So just demonstrating their movement, they ratchet all the way down, they ratchet all the way back. They also ratchet side to side, which is fantastic on this joint here. So this here does ratchet forwards and backwards, and then these here hinge up and down. I just think that this is a really nice design choice on Hasbro, and I can't see this loosening over time or the ratchet joints becoming brittle. So definitely a really nice design choice. Something for me which I wish was tightened up was these wings. Now standing in this particular position, they're not too bad. However, if I was to angle those out to the side, these sections here do become incredibly droopy. These can't really hold a pose too well, so I tend to lock them into place and just have them in a more static position like so. But the range of motion we do get out of these is a full 360 degrees at this area, as well as a hinge joint here. We also get a hinge joint here, and they are on ratchet joints, allowing you to move them forwards and backwards. The actual wings themselves have hinge joints to compress them, so they do fold in, fold out, and then fold in, so you could compress them if you so choose. However, in this mode, of course, you're going to want to have them fully elongated to their maximum magnitude. And then finally, turning to the articulation of this tail section, this too has also got some great hinge joints. So we do have a double hinge joint here, allowing this section to move up and down. We've also got a double hinge joint here, a single hinge here, and then we do get this section which can tilt side to side. So personally, in terms of articulation, I do think that we do get quite an exquisite amount of articulation for a rather obscure character's design. Now, all of the articulation that I showcase within the Lynx mode for the legs, of course, carries over to this particular mode, so you are able to spray these legs out. However, there's not really too much you could do for dynamic posing for a figure that is on 4 legs. And as this is Skylynx, I personally think that he looks awesome just standing there looking really, really cool. Now, taking a look at the blast effects that Skylynx does in fact come with, some of these are entirely new sculpts than what we saw with some of the other figures, and this is how they looked when they are completely stacked. So we get this smaller one here. I'll just begin to slowly work my way down. They get ever so more compressed and look as if though they are creating a much larger impact. This one here is rather odd. It hasn't really got a peg. It sort of plugs into the other ones, and then these peg into this base one, which I find quite unusual. It's got almost a tab section on it as well. So that is definitely a lot different than what we got with Siege Jetfire. But personally, I think that it's great. I mean, you can take these and port those in and have this coming out of Skylynx's mouth to give you the effect that perhaps he's using fire to rain down terror on the Decepticons, which is really cool. And then the other accessories that he comes with is in fact a pair of these almost rocket-like weapons. They've got some nice sculpting and detailing and have been cast in a white plastic with some nice gunmetal paint apps. And you can just hook these onto the backs of the legs if you wish, or utilize them in some of the other modes. You can even plug them on the front. However, I think they just look a lot better when pegged on the back legs of Skylynx. Another nice feature and touch that this figure does in fact have is that if you do lift under to the underside and pull this ramp section down, there is actually a hollow space in there for you to take some of the Micromasters, and you can in fact plug one in there, seal this section up, and then almost have it look as if though it's coming down the ramp, which I think is really cool. And once again, it's just a nice touch. You can have these figures really maximizing their playability, and I think that it helps cross-sell some of the other figures from the Earthrise toy line. And for a nice size comparison shot, just so you can really gather the magnitude of this brand new Commander class Skylynx, here I have him fully displayed with the bird and the Lynx combined next to the Earthrise Optimus Prime and the previously released Commander class Jetfire. You can see that whilst he may not be as tall as Jetfire, considering Jetfire was your more standard upright on 2-legged robot, I definitely think that the mass is there for this particular figure, and you can see that he is just leaps and bounds larger than Optimus Prime, as he really should be. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any of the Dinobots that came out from the Power of the Primes line. However, he would be a lot bigger than those Voyagers. You can really just see when comparing him next to Optimus that this is a massive, massive figure. I really absolutely love this Commander class line and just hope that it carries over into the next chapter of the War for Cybertron trilogy, and they may even give us a Star Saber. We never ever know with Hasbro. So that was my review on the Transformers Earthrise Commander class Skylynx. Personally, I really do like this figure. I think that he offers a great range of playability, particularly with the shuttle mode, the fact that you can turn that almost transportation mode into the modular battle station mode, and you can in fact connect other figures from the line such as Ironworks and Hoist in order to really create an almost Autobot base. I like how the shuttle actually opens up and you've got that really nice gold detailing with the ramp that does lead up to it. The bird mode, whilst I know it is accurate to G1, I just think that in terms of a toy it doesn't really work too well. The balancing act is definitely something which is a drawback for me. I know that it's probably down to the fact that they had to find a way in order to create that mode and still make it look natural when combined with the Lynx, but for me it is definitely really finicky, and it's more of a pain to actually get the figure to stand than to actually transform it into that mode. I think that the Lynx is definitely the best out of the bird and the Lynx mode. I think that looks really cool, and the articulation within this whole lower region on all of these four legs is really nice as well. And when you actually take the bird mode and combine it with the Lynx to form, of course, Skylynx, you take the Sky, which is the bird, and the Lynx, I think that looks really awesome. And this is probably the best Skylynx figure we're ever going to get from Hasbro, unless Takara brings out a masterpiece version, which I really doubt that they do. This figure I believe to be just as good as the Commander Jetfire, whilst in different ways. It is a completely different design of a character and is something completely different from Jetfire, so it is going to lack in certain areas where Jetfire did excel in. However, it's going to improve in certain areas just because it's got a completely different design. It's not your standard two-legged robot. It is something completely different from anything that they've done before with this Commander line, seeing as this is only their second release into this assortment. I hope you enjoyed my review, and if you did, please let me know down in the comment section below. And until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.